everybody's pretty much gone through the day at this point, but I believe that there'll be a revisitation to the energies that are going on right now and how they'll transition into tomorrow, because between today and tomorrow, actually for the next 4 days, you're going to notice kind of like not only a shift, but also you're going to notice a transition into something. And I believe the cards are going to tell you everything that you need to know, on top of what other information we have available to us, if we do the research and whatnot. I think that's also really important. I wanted to show you guys, I don't necessarily base my life off these things, off of books, but for those of you who are curious about getting more interested, this is a book that my wife gave me, that lets you know what's going on in, astrologically, in your lives. And I think this would be beneficial to people if they actually paid attention, especially listening to the messages that we give here. It would definitely benefit people greatly by being aware. At least awareness is key, is what Spirit is saying here. And being aware how these things influencing you and actually being the steward in your life to pay attention to how these things go down is really important, right? And, my experiences have actually they teach me that every day, is that we don't live life by a clock, in a sense, where we live by time. We live on planetary alignments and movements and seasons and time that is associated with natural elements, with the natural functionings of the entire universe, in a sense, right? But, we can pay attention to a moon cycle and understand that everything has a cycle pattern or some certain behavior if we study them, including ourselves, right? And that's the path of being the observer. This is what we talk about, awareness is key when you have the ability to deep dive into yourself and see these things for what they are and not what you believe them to be, because that easily offends us. And usually that's when we sway away from these things. So I think it's important, to say these things to people, to be more, to understand that it's not really complicated. It's really not, but to simplify complexity might be a challenge for people, because it's like, oh, well, what about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? And if you've heard anything on this channel or, things that we've said before, it's not necessarily about the how. You're looking at the how from a survival instinct. So basically that you might as well just scrap that, because that doesn't work anymore, right? So if you have dreams, goals, ambitions, you enter this survival space, of thinking about the future. And that's why you're not realizing that it's the past look or the past stuckness that is inside of you that is creating this chaos, this panic and fear, and this needing to know. Especially when you're divinely led, dude. When you're divinely led is really important, because it's not necessarily that you have to ask the how. It's more like you're going to experience the how. And that's how you practice patience and awareness in that space. You know what I'm saying? Especially if you're following a spiritual path, a spiritual discipline, and you're getting to know your higher self and getting to know you, opening up the chakra system, being more familiar with your energetic system, being more aware of the information that you're receiving and not necessarily the fuck shit. You know what I'm saying? Not being scared of what you're hearing on top of it all, because anything that seems to be your enemy is not really your enemy. It just you perceive it to be one. And that's why it affects you the way that it does, until you realize that there's an emotional value that you're feeding that is enhancing that fear that is causing chaos and panic in your life. And that's where spiritual discipline comes in, is because once you become aware that all these things are happening, especially when they're associated with your emotions or you're scared to do something, that's just telling you how insecure you are about yourself and your judgment or your intention or your awareness of what it is that's going on, right? Not a lot of people might like to hear that, because the last thing that we ever want to do to ourselves is point the finger to ourselves, but realize we are our own biggest problem. And that's what the universe has this tendency to show us a lot, if we're paying attention. If we actually focus on those things and realize that the universe is basically reverberating what we think, believe, feel, and act about ourselves. And we're also guilty by association, which is the atmospheres that we consume in one way or another, that we feed an emotional value that allows that to continue to exist in our lives, because we believe that to be a reality, a finite reality. Just, it is what it is, and that's all it's ever going to be type of shit. And you don't realize that you're an active participant in keeping that there for other people to observe as well, right? Friends, family, guilty by association type of stuff. So it could be you we're talking about, or it could be a group of friends we're talking about, or a group of people, a family member, community. You know what I'm saying? So there's many aspects to a lot of people's journeys right now that are in observance, that are in awareness of observance, or should be in awareness of that observance, because we're being given the ability to do so with a lot more clarity than what we've had in the past couple of days, much less the weeks, because everything's been jumping around and everything's been so chaotic, and communication has been something, and confusion is always present. Technology's been acting up, and a lot of this energy feels like we're stuck in the past somehow, like we're reviewing the past, like we're in some type of retrograde energy, but we're not in a retrograde. So it's almost like this is another way of looking that you're getting ready for things to change, and we're looking at a change that is really going to be noticeable. It's going to be profound, is what Spirit is saying. In these next couple of days, you're going to start realizing the intensity of this energy. You know what I'm saying? Right now, we're going through a little bit of a hump, a little bit of a loop, only to realize that we're going to get shot straight up. So if you feel sleepy, lethargic and stuff like that, and you know that you're taking care of your business and you're handling your business and everything else is great, but you're tired, then find time to do so. Find time to rest. Find time to elongate yourself and your daily habits. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of these, as more daylight is available to us, we have the ability to intensify our productivity, what it is that we're focusing on, getting shit done, and all those things. And this is what the daylight is providing us right now. So, again, when we talk about harmony, frequency, resonance, and coherence, we realize that we're operating in the natural state of resonance, of vibration, of frequency, of what the planets, the earth itself, and the sun are all providing simultaneously in order for us to grow, live, make things happen, create new products in our life, new parts in our lives, new aspects of our lives. All of the above is what I'm hearing here. You know what I'm saying? So when you go back to the astrology, you understand that this astrologically is affecting you somehow. It's time to heal. It's time to learn. It's time to grow. It's time to change. It's time to flip the script, because you've been flipping the script so long that you don't know what's in front of you right now. And this has actually happened to me, where I've actually looked at that. What's up, cuz? I hear you. I see you. When we look at these things, we realize that everything has shifted for our greatest and highest selves to evolve, to learn, and to grow. Right? This isn't these kids games where we're sitting there fucking dealing with trauma every day. We're actually making sense of these things now. If you're stuck in that place, you can reach out to us. You know what I'm saying? We work with everybody on that level, but I believe this message is more tailored to those that are aware of the spiritual selves and what that is actually starting to bring to the table for you and make you more aware of that is happening in your life. You're becoming more sensitive. You're becoming more aware. You're becoming more scared. You're becoming more introverted. You know what I'm saying? These things are classic signs of alignment or misalignment. You know what I'm saying? If you guys are afraid to go out there, be somebody, do something different, then obviously you're facing an enemy of complacency that has been there for so long that it has become your friend. And it's kind of hard to let go, right? Because there's so much emotional value in comforting yourself, especially if you've gone through so much shit. If you've gone through some type of struggle, strife, if you've been in some type of domestic fucked up abuse or some sort, you know what I'm saying? Some form of manipulation, narcissism, being with a sociopath. all of the above, pick one. You realize that some of us have been put in these situations, not only for us to learn and grow, but for us to realize that we're here to solve and fix issues like this because we're destined to do so. And this is also about destiny, is what Spirit is saying. Are you admiring and honoring the fact that you are destined for greatness? Or is greatness defeating you because it has bested you into thinking that you cannot be your best, is what I just heard. You know what I'm saying? So we're all being challenged to rise to the divine sovereign self, or what that entails as we walk along the path, right? We could be more engaging and more committed into these things that make sense now, versus the things that has baffled us and caused us to be emotionally unstable in one way or another, And that's the brass tacks of things, fam. You know what I'm saying? Like, the reality, the authenticity, and the truth is not your enemy, right? But it can offend one to believe it to be the truth to be the enemy, right? We're all talking here, right? Everybody's played the mind game in one way or another with themselves, only to realize that they have defeated themselves somehow And literally somebody swooped in and enhanced your perception on the situation, and therefore your belief of that situation changed. And here we are, setting another example for that very understanding yourself, just in a different way, in a spiritual way, in a sensical way, or a nonsensical way to some that are not emotionally connected to the message or energetically evolved to the point where they realize that they're connected to something more, something higher, something invisible, something you can't see, but maybe you can hear it, you can feel it, or maybe you can't see it. Maybe these things are happening to you simultaneously, and it feels like the veil is getting really thin right now. There isn't one to begin with. That's an illusion. That's basically our density that doesn't allow us to see the clarity that has been that has bested us, and does not has been bestowed upon us, but has bested us into thinking that this physical structure is all we can see, all we can feel, all we can hear, all we can taste, all we can touch. No, we're part of connected to a higher consciousness, which is connected to everything. And a lot of you people probably don't even know what to do with this kind of awareness or this sensitivity. And this is why we're here explaining these things to you, so that way it's a little easier to come out of the closet, regardless of how uncomfortable you feel, and actually be willing to challenge yourself to rise in a way that is more dignified and sovereign, the way that it was destined to be, the divine way, and the divine pathway is what I'm being told for all you beautiful people to engage in, as long as you're willing to master your emotions and move on from this physical construct that has you staying and doing the same thing over and over and over again, and trying to change something that's either not working or doesn't matter. Because not only are you more important, because the divine honoring of the divine self is how you get your messages, it's where you get your ideas, it's where you get your inspiration and your motivation, because now creation is in your favor when you're willing to engage in it. And I believe this is going to become, if not more common knowledge than it already is. It's just going to be in your face, fam, to the point where you have no choice but to deal with it. This is Spirit's way of saying get on board before the bandwagon runs you over and then drags you along until you get back on. This is another way of saying that, because some of you are signed up for something so profound that it's almost unbelievable to you, because you've been normied out, that you've been brainwashed into believing that this is all there is, or this is all there is going to be, and it's going to get better over time. But you don't know how incrementally fast you can catch up to where you need to be and where you want to be, as long as you're passionate about being there in the first place. You got to want this. You got to commit to it. You got to say yes to it. And then you have to be self-involved in a way where you're actually trying to honor yourself in a compassionate way, instead of battering yourself, or allow people to do those things and walk all over you in one way or another, because it feels that way, is what I feel with this collective energy that I'm receiving right now. There's a lot of people feel like they're getting stomped into a mud hole somehow, and this is all that it ever is going to be, because they've settled somehow. And that's the answer to the riddle, is that there is no settling to a being of consistent change and constant movement. You know what I'm saying? I make jokes all the time about us being children of perpetual motion. Movement is flow. You know what I'm saying? Stagnancy is still. It doesn't move. You know what I'm saying? And if you've ever been in stale air, in air that's been sitting in one place for too long, it starts to stink. You know what I'm saying? And we're all emanating that shit in one way or another. And this is what the universe is presenting for us right now, and spirit, your spirit team, ancestors, angels, guides, etc., 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 are all leading you into this new divine pathway, this new understanding of self, this new revelation and new ideas, bringing more of the divine consciousness forward in your favor, embracing what the soul is meant to embrace and embark on here and create for itself. You know what I'm saying? But also understanding that they're connected to something greater and something more, and we should be more dignified and respectful of that opportunity that we are being given by the divine right now, right? It doesn't mean you have to completely forget who you are, because we're all characters in a play, you know what I'm saying? Somehow, some way, right? But it means that you got to be willing to leave everything behind that don't matter, to show you the things that do matter right now. And there's the commitment, is what Spirit is saying. Are you willing to go ahead and take the backpack and put it down and walk without your survival skills and learn how to thrive? I think that's a beautiful message for anyone. If you're looking for inspiration or motivation, obviously you can find it here, but it's also inside of you, because it lights you up. when the truth hits you, it doesn't have to be heavy and sad, but it's just profound. How we respond to that resonance or that automatic form of clarity that literally comes up in a moment when we get goosebumps or when we receive enlightenment, because they're both one and the same. You realize that you're connected to something more that is creating that inside of yourself, that is letting you know this. I know this. It's organic to me. This is what's natural, right? This is enlightenment, fam. This is experiences that are literally speaking us to at every moment, but we're too busy, clouded in the mind, not allowing ourselves to listen to the consciousness within, to the higher self, to the soul, to the heart. You know what I'm saying? The I am, the very reason why we're here. You know what I'm saying? It's not about you, but it's about you. It's not about the you that you think is you, because that's what's happening right now. All that shit's getting peeled back and all things are getting revealed in one way in each and every other's lives, you know. Whether you're seeing it outside of yourself, it's something outside of yourself that you can see within yourself, and see within yourself outside of yourself, something that you may not no longer be, but are being asked to look at it differently, so that way you don't have to get emotionally stuck in these type of vibrations anymore, and you can free yourself from the mind and the aspects that keep you stuck, that keep you safe, that keep you triggered, that keep you dumbfounded and confused and chaotic. And almost like, dude, it becomes Groundhog Day. Every 3 months you realize that all the shit, the same shit's happening all over again, and nothing fucking changes, and I can't get clientele, and I can't get attraction, and I can't manifest, and this and that, and I'm trying to get out of this hole, and I'm trying to make money, and all these things. How much devotion do you have to be looking within yourself and understand what it is that's vibrating out into the universe that is actually reciprocating the lack of favor in your life? And you come to realize that it's usually the lack of awareness about your emotions and how uncontrolled they are, and what you believe to be discipline is not. Because the form of survival that is literally coming up in people's lives right now is how they've used to make money, how they've used to look forward, how they move forward with confidence, how they move forward with courage and decision and planning and respect to the divine, as they're embracing that connection to higher consciousness, as these ideas or these passions or these new things that are literally pouring out all the old shit to make room for new shit right now. And we're trying to hold on to it, and it's like a flood. You know, not realizing that these things are meant to go, and we're meant to embrace what we fear the most, which is the lack of success in our lives. The lack of the ability to be that person that we are meant to be in this world, and totally know what success looks like, because we manifested it and we built it brick by brick, right? You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people are scared. It's like, oh, I'm too old. What are you talking about? No, I'm settling. No, fuck that. I'm safe. No, none of that. None of that is working anymore. It's like people don't know how to deal with themselves. If you've had rampant run-ups and addictions all of a sudden, people coming from the past, it feels like past stuck space energy. This is what we're vibrating at right now, only to show us how far we've come and how much more we need to make a decision on how we want to succeed in our lives versus settling, or the settlement of the lives that have already settled, right? And they show me this picture of like, hey, do you want to be like everybody else around you, or do you want to stand out the way that I showed you and I was meant for, that you were meant to be shown out? You know, it's almost like the Creator's way of saying, I am literally living through you at the same time, and I want to shine because I am that light, because I am the creation of all things, and I literally want to be that representation in this life that I am participating in with who we believe we are. You know what I'm saying? Everybody says God's in you, but nobody knows that it's something that you can actually feel, and it's easy to confirm if somebody points it out to you, like we have tonight, and thereon and thereforth, like we continue to do, to help you understand these vibrational confirmations or energetic reactions that a lot of you may be having, that are consumed by thought, that cause you to be unaware of the divine actually speaking and the sovereign coming out of you and pouring out of you, especially in emotional moments of joy, happiness, motherly instinct, all these beautiful things that happen naturally that we have a tendency to take advantage of in one way or another, because we're unaware that these things are happening in the moment, you know? And that's what this card is all about. This is about you seeing the passion, seeing the fire, but also staring the dragon that might eat you in the face, knowing that it really can't eat you in the face because you're not asking for it, because you don't vibrate at that frequency. So why are you here type of stuff. This is that review of the old enemy. The things that we used to say, things that we used to see, the things that we used to believe, the things that we used to repeat over and over again because we thought those things were just are now unjust because we've leveled up and become something more. Are you going to step up to the plate? Are you going to swing the bat? Are you going to wear the hat? Are you going to wear the uniform? You know what I'm saying? Are you going to embrace the very things that are being given to us right now instead of the chaos and the bullshit that is consistent in our lives in one way or another? Do we want to remove these things? You know what I'm saying? Do we want more peace, balance, alignment, and equanimity in our lives? Abso-fucking-lutely. There is no person in here that would disagree. You know, and if they disagree, I would say possibly maybe even having a head examined, you know, at that point, because psychologically, we've come to realize that we've been manipulated for thousands of years. You know, for those of you who have been paying attention, but even in this life, you've been manipulated for 30, 40, 50 fucking years. And now you're actually seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. It's like, wait, this is all bullshit. This makes me uncomfortable. I don't like the way that these people live. I don't want to do this shit no more. I want to live. I want to succeed. I want to go see new things. I want to do new things. I don't want to be in a box anymore. I don't want to be in this house anymore. I don't want to be on these grounds anymore because they make me miserable. Well, the universe is going, all right. So what are you going to do about it? Shall we conspire? You know what I'm saying? And this is where we start paying attention to that very connection that is inside of us, because now we have been able to legitimize and add value and worth, not only to the very thing that we are, but the very things that we're going to do after the fact. Right? You know, and that's what mastering, you know, becoming the master, the king or the queen in your life, and learning how water flows in your life and what emotions are associated with that water that is uncontrollable can be controlled by settling your indifferences with yourself. You know what I'm saying? The higher aspect of yourself, because the higher aspect has the clarity, right? Everybody knows about the higher self at this point. Everybody knows that there's an oversoul. Everybody knows that there's a soul in the body. Now we are speaking to it. And it's something that literally reverberates inside of you that lets you know, yes, we are here, we are influential, and we speak these things to educate these things to other people so that way they better understand themselves, so that way they can form a sensible, stable form of self-control instead of a chaotic, neurotic environment which has been pre-programmed in your favor to literally hang you up every step of the way. So I guess at the end of that transmission, you know, well, I have to say that not only it's a he, and he's right, you know, spiritual discipline is something that we kind of like fumble around with, and we go play with it in the bushes, and when the flowers come out, it's all pretty, and then we want to fucking embrace it, right? Well, what happens when we got to pick up, you know what I'm saying? Like, what happens when you got to take the shit out of the garden, you know? Nobody wants to do that. Everybody wants to stare at the pretty things, and everybody wants to make themselves comfortable, but regardless, it's part of the upkeep of the garden. You know what I'm saying? Besides, the shit that's there that doesn't belong there can be used somehow to make something else different, beautiful, if not waste. You know what I'm saying? But we all have to clear the garden right now. This is the spring, man. You know, are you not surprised at things that are happening in your life right now? Are you really, really questioning why the fuck this is happening to you right now when we're sitting here explaining it to you week by week? You know, are you convinced? Have you had enough? Have you realized that these things that we are saying are actually coming from somewhere else and not just some human being spewing shit all over the internet like everyone else? You know, these are the questions that we should be asking ourselves, you know, in one way or another, and not only from personal experience, but from awareness. You know, and experience of these things, you know, outside of myself and watching them all happen. You know, when are we actually going to start asking the questions of quality and not quantity, because everybody else is asking the same damn questions? How the hell am I going to do this? How the fuck is that going to happen? Da 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 da. Well, you're going to make it happen. How willing are you to make something happen in your life, and how devoted are you to it? Not from a place of obsession, but from a place of divine connection. And that passion that is associated with the connection, the little thing that's bumping and bubbling up inside of yourself that is making you feel some type of way inside of your chest right now, if you're actually paying attention, realizing that it's talking and it's tingling, and it might be feeling like pressure, or it might be feeling like you need to breathe, or probably you haven't been breathing enough, or you haven't been paying attention to yourself much. And here we are. This is the ignorance, fam. This is also the manipulation. This is the lack of loving ourselves and anybody educating us on how to love ourselves and what that actually means and what it feels like. And here we are. You know, these things matter. You matter. You know, these things help you make better decisions in your life that allow you to be more successful and more open to what the divine has presented for you and what God has placed on your path for you. Because you signed up to be here in one way or another. The agreeance of that and coming to agreement with that and honoring and accepting that and opening your heart to it is exactly what needs to be done here. But you can choose, and choose wisely on whether you feel comfortable doing that or not, because it's a decision that literally changes your life and turns it upside down, only to show you that everything was backwards overall. You know, if this isn't making sense, if this doesn't resonate, you're more than welcome to disagree. But I believe that there's a lot of people in this live and paying attention out there that understand that these things are truly important and they do matter, and they've been humbled by the energy and the essence of the transmission that is being given to all of you right now, that allows you to stop things just enough to be able to see how important you are and this message is to you. Salah. Thank you for being here, everybody. Welcome in. Thank you for being here. If you'd like a reading from this divine partnership, you know, that we all have here, you're more than welcome to engage in that space. You know, I am doing readings tonight. These are mini soul council messages. You're more than welcome to engage. Of course, everything that you hear here is divinely channeled and divinely led, and is solely meant for the collective energy. But also at the same time, I am doing personal messages for people today with the same energy. So, you know, with that being said, if you'd like to engage in that space, the link is in the bio. You can type done and how you donate it in the chat. I'm not putting a price on these readings. These are for the people. All I ask is that you donate, reciprocate, so we could do this more in the future. You know, with that being said, I hope you enjoyed the message. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, or you're just not the type to put all your business out on live, you can go to our website, fourcornershealing37.com, and schedule a soul council session with me one-on-one, and we can make it happen in that space. And it's in-depth and detail. And, you know, tomorrow's another day to exercise this awareness. Try to engage in a clearer, more practical way of looking at things. If something bothers you, you don't necessarily have to look at it, but take a look at the way it makes you feel and ask yourself, are you offended by the very things that you're feeling, or are actually enjoying the fact that you can feel them and move past whatever it is that you may think is detrimental in your lives? So that's going to keep on coming up for the next couple of days in one way or another, fam. Be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and look out for one another, including yourself, you know, because you're going to need you more than you've ever needed you in your life now, you know, and this is just the way it is what Spirit is saying. So with that being said, take care, fam. Peace.